Okay, so hi everyone. I'm here today with quite an interesting person in the PHP community. I would say he has had quite a significant impact on modern PHP. Jordi, thanks for joining today.
Well,
And
thanks for having me.
maybe you should introduce yourself just in case some people don't know who you are, that they are up to speed with who I'm talking to today.
Right. So I'm Jordi Boggiano. I started, kind of co-started with Niels Adderman, the Composer project, as well as Packagist.org. I think now it's 12 years, 13 years.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was, I think it was 2011. So that'd be 12 years. 12 years ago. And it's been quite a wild ride since, I guess.
Yeah. Do you think it's
Keeps us
accurate?
busy.
Is it accurate when I say that that you've had quite a significant impact in shaping the PHP community?
I would say maybe indirectly, yes. I mean, just by Composer enabling, I would say yes. It probably did help a lot with enabling like the Symfony ecosystem, the Laravel ecosystem to really flourish and become more an ecosystem than what you had before, which was like these silos of frameworks, which
What actually happened before Composer?
Well, I mean, you had Pair, which some people used for some things, but it wasn't super easy to publish to. It was more of a closed ecosystem, and then you could run your own repositories as well. And like it was on paper, it was all possible, but just in practice, it didn't seem to happen as much. Okay. It's a bit like GitHub kind of allowed Git to become this big thing just by centralizing everything and having this central point where you can share your code and send pull requests and so on. Because like if you take Git, if you have to email patches and so on, it's it's okay. It's just a bit of a pain. And like, that's what happened before. Now with Git, you could pull from other servers and whatnot, but it was still just kind of a pain. And so Packagist really helped with that. And just having this central point where you can publish your packages and it's open to everyone. There's no vetting process of any kind, which of course it's discussable if that's good or bad, but it's just, it makes it easier for everyone to collaborate faster, I would say.
With Packagist, it's like the package manager for PHP. Can you share a bit of why you started with the project and where the idea came from?
So it really came from my side. I was in the more in the Symfony community, and Niels was coming from PHP BB, which he was the lead of at the time. And so both of these kind of had the similar problem that we needed plugins and this sort of like extension points for third-party stuff to come into the framework or the forum software. And so we met at the Symfony conference back then, because PHP BB was looking at reusing some bits of Symfony. And we thought, let's just kind of join up efforts on that instead of, having yet another like Symfony specific plugin installer or something like that. Like it just kind of happened by accident to some extent that we were from different communities and just that forced it a bit more than it. I mean, I'm not sure what would have happened otherwise, but like we ended up really wanting to have something that was generic and not like Symfony specific or this or that specific, which before, like, it had lots of, plugin installers for all sorts of frameworks. But those were not really like usable by everyone. So the other aspect is that Symfony, as it shipped, was using Doctrine. It was using Monologue. It was using just a set of like dependencies which were not part of the framework, and so you kind of needed a solution there that was going already beyond the framework as a way to pull in these dependencies. So that's how we started, and then
should I imagine something like you sitting down for a weekend and coding Composer, or how did that happen?
No, that was probably a bit of a slower thing than just a weekend, but I think Niels kind of started with porting this the solver code from a C library, because that's kind of like just proper dependency resolution is a really tough problem to crack if you want to do it really correctly. And so we just reused some existing code there, which evolved a little bit over the years, but that was a good starting point for sure. And I had started on Packagist, and then we kind of teamed up there, and I helped more building up the UI for Composer, which I mean, it's CLI, but more like the bits you interact with as a developer. And I don't know, I would say it probably took I think like 4 or 5 months before we had really something you could play with. And then like the first packages started coming in on and stuff like that. And I think by the end of the year, which would have been like 8 months-ish, I think we had some people using it in production, which was terrifying to me at the time. Because I knew how early it was, but somehow, I mean, it's still only like kind of build time, right? So if it works in build time, there's no big risk putting it in production. But it was just, I didn't think it was quite ready.
And was there a point where you knew like, okay, this is it, we're going for it, this is going to be like the big thing for PHP? Or did that grow gradually?
I think that took probably like a year or 2 or 3 to really materialize as more and more projects kind of jumped on board, and then at some point we noticed that it's like everyone's gonna adopt this to some extent, and by now I think it's really just WordPress that's still like
it's just
refusing. But I understand as well, like it's such a gigantic ecosystem. Like I don't want to blame them for this really. And some people in WordPress actually use Composer, and like there are some solutions that will kind of go around it, but But
do you think they will ever like make the switch in WordPress to like fully embrace Composer?
I seriously doubt it at this point, but who knows? I mean, it would be such a huge endeavor, and then a huge break for the community that I don't really see it happening. Just because of the size of the WordPress community.
Hey, so most of PHP developers, they are used to like running Composer install and Composer upgrade, and things just happen, and we just assume that's it. But there is, of course, quite a lot going on behind the scenes, and I was curious to learn a bit more about what's going on there. Like, with managing servers and maintenance and a bit of the architecture that's behind Composer. Can you share a bit about that?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So really, I mean, let's keep it simple. Usually, when you run a Composer update, you kind of talk to packages.org to fetch package metadata, like to know which versions are available, etc. Then it's resolving that locally, like which versions it should install, and then you go and fetch the zip files for the package data, which is then usually from GitHub. Like it's 98% or something is coming from GitHub. So that's the basic flow, let's say. What this translates to for us, I had a look a little bit at the numbers. We have, like on the API, so on the packages.org, like API side, which is not really hit by Composer much.
Okay.
So this is more like third party services fetching data and web usage and so on. We get to like 100 to 200 requests per second on that. Then if you look at the JSON, which like the JSON files which Composer uses to resolve stuff, this is much more. There we get to 4,000 to 5,000 requests per second.
It's quite a lot.
So that's quite a bit. This is really, it's been, we have our own kind of CDN thing with a bunch of mirror nodes and
okay.
And it's all static files, so it's really efficient. It's just Nginx, like serving stuff as fast as possible.
Yeah.
But we have, at the moment it's averaging like 50 to 100 megabyte per second, so not megabit per second. So in megabit, you're kind of going to like one gigabit per second, more or less.
Yeah.
With peaks up to 4 gigabit per second. So it's getting to be a lot of bandwidth. Again, like just in numbers, just to finish going through there.
Yeah.
I think we have almost 200 terabytes of JSON per month. So
per
just
month
of metadata. Yeah. Okay. So 200 terabytes. Yeah, it's not too bad. Like it's just, if you ran this on AWS, I think this would cost like
exactly
a gazillion per month just in egress fees.
Yeah.
But that's why we have our own kind of CDN thing there.
Yeah. And
cheap host.
Are those running PHP then, or are you using any other languages?
No, these are really just using Nginx. And I mean, there's some PHP process like kind of syncing the files and. But it's really purely static file hosting.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But so that's, I mean, the infrastructure is what I would say is we've tried really hard to keep it simple. Of course, yes, it grew to be somewhat complex just because of the needs of like serving all of that traffic. But it's simple in the sense that it's just not many moving parts, and that allows us to, with a small team, kind of be able to sleep at night.
Yeah.
And because I just remember, like the first few years, we had, the whole of packages.org was on just on one like dedicated machine.
Yeah.
And that got us really far, like really much further as I initially thought.
Yeah.
But it got also to a point where it was really terrifying to have just everything depending on that one machine to be up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now we have, some like AWS, like highly available setup for for the website, like for the API and so on. And then all these mirror nodes, which are like a bit more disposable for serving the JSON. Yeah, that's I guess that would be kind of the overview of it. I don't know if you have more questions, but
well, it's good to hear that you can sleep at night. Yeah, because I can imagine if this goes down at one point, there are quite a lot of issues.
Right. Yeah, we definitely get notified quickly when there's a problem. Just
so I'm wondering who's paying for all of this.
So we are, but I mean, for a long time, it was mostly me just paying for the hosting, which as long as it was this one machine, like that was fine. Like, I don't know, like really for the first few years, it cost like $50 a month or something.
Yeah.
It was totally reasonable. And, but then, as it grew and kind of started costing more, but, and especially as my time started getting more stretched with this, and I didn't really feel like working weekends and evenings anymore, then we kind of looked for a solution for just making this more sustainable for both of the open source maintenance aspect and the purely financial aspect of hosting.
Yeah.
But down the line, I mean, hosting is always relatively cheap compared to your time. As developers, it's kind of like just people cost a lot more than hosting. So we started this private Packagist, like I don't remember now. I think it was 2017, so 6 years ago. So we started that as a way to kind of sell something around Composer and have a way of making, like, getting revenue out of the community and using that to fund the open source development and the hosting fees. So that's going pretty well, and that's we have a few employees now, and so we sell like private package hosting and extra services around that, around security and just updating dependencies and so on. So it's kind of a few nice extras you get if you're a business. Makes sense, I think, for just for companies working with PHP. So it's a way, you get some niceties, and you help us as well fund the open source stuff, which is also really in everyone's interest. So I think it's a good solution.
Yeah, speaking,
and I'm glad that we have so many people like that kind of joined and pay for this, because
there's also the option to sponsor you and Packagist on GitHub, or
yes, we have that as well, but it's down the line. That's like, I don't know, like
it's not enough.
3% or 5% or something of the revenue is sponsorships. So,
which is actually,
I don't remember exactly, but it's just like, it's insanely low.
But do you think it should be higher? Because this is open source. There are so many companies depending on it.
Yes, look, I think, of course, it should be higher, but I'm glad we figured out a way to make it work without that, let's say, for us. But I think it should be higher in the sense that not necessarily for us, but just overall for like the open source world, the situation is not great. And the problem is, if you have like, usually the big ones kind of manage to find a way to get some revenue stream in, or they have enough clout to get enough enough sponsorships. But the main issue that I see is like the smaller libraries and small things which, you know, maybe take you like, you know, this 1 hour here and there to maintain. They're like, you usually get nothing. And it's absolutely not on anyone's radar to sponsor these. And so it's really, I think that's where the main problem lies, actually.
Yeah.
Is kind of the long tail there of all these developers that spend usually free time on this. And and yeah, that's what I really hope would get it in a better spot. But it's also, it's a hard problem to solve. Like, you know, many have tried.
Yeah.
And it's, they all bring a little piece to the edifice, but it's, yeah, so far I haven't seen really the perfect solution there.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It would be nice if this problem could be solved, but there are, like you said, so many people tried, and we've seen very little result for it. It's nice that you found a way to make it sustainable using private Packagist. I would say in the ideal world that shouldn't be necessary, but luckily it's possible to keep Composer and Packagist running this way. So. Hey, maybe another topic I wanted to discuss as well, because I started by saying you've had quite an influence on the PHP community. I'm also interested in hearing your thoughts about your vision for the PHP ecosystem in the coming years, and do you see maybe challenges or opportunities for PHP in the future, the next decade?
So I know you did send me this in advance, so clearly I should have a great speech.
It's all fine.
Ready to go here. but no, to be honest, like, I'm just gonna say, like, I'm really glad to see the PHP Foundation like taking off. And, we supported this as well from the get-go, and I'm glad this is finally happening. I think this is really a good thing for the PHP language. Now, as far as the ecosystem, like the broader library framework ecosystem goes, I don't have like a great vision there. I never had one, to be honest. Like, I'm glad Composer helped to enable people to do stuff, but it's not like we were there like orchestrating any of it. So I would say, like, to me, it still seems solid. Like, there's still innovation going on. I'm not worried, really. I would say it's on a good path. But I don't really have a grand vision or even hopes at this point. Like, even with the language, I'm really quite happy. Like, there are few minor things which I would still love to have, like mainly property accessors, I guess. That's really the one I've been hoping for years and years. But aside from that, I think it's getting to a good point. And and well, as you know as well, I've mostly been focusing on family and kids and stuff.
Exactly.
so that's where most of the mental energy goes at the moment. I don't have space to think about
that's
visions for anything else.
No, that makes sense, and that's totally fine. Another question I had was you did this version stats blog post series for quite a while, and I actually took it over when you stopped doing it. so twice a year, you and now I look at how PHP version usage is evolving and how packages are upgrading or not upgrading. What's your feeling, if you have a feeling about it at least? How is PHP doing with regards to like keeping up to date with modern versions, or exactly the opposite?
Yeah, I would say if you look at the early blog posts that I did, like I think the trend got better as PHP's release cycle kind of became more and more predictable, and we have these yearly releases now, and like the backwards compatibility issues are also. I think it got better as well. Depends who you ask. But I think most for the most part it kind of improved. And I would say this has improved the overall situation where people roll to new releases more often. You still see like a big effect, I think, from Ubuntu and kind of the 2-year cycle on the Ubuntu LTS there, where finally people kind of jump a few releases when they get to the new one. But yeah, I think it's gotten better, but it's still not perfect. But is it ever gonna be really so that everyone upgrades instantly? I don't think so. I mean, it's what it is. Like everyone's busy, and I saw as well, like just from the stats on Composer itself, like Composer 2 was released. I don't remember when anymore, but
2 years ago, or something like that.
I would think so as well. So October 24, 2020. So that's 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Oh,
almost 3.
Yeah. And we still have about 13% of Composer updates happening with version 1.
Really?
Yes. Wow. So that's the thing. Like it's always this curve, and then this long tail has no end to it. It's just
exactly. And
like in 15 years, you'll still get some of them just because like it's totally crazy, but it's just how it is.
Yeah, of course, that tail runs until someone cuts it off. But I can imagine, especially for Composer, you wouldn't want to make too many drastic changes here, and at some point just say, we're not going to support Composer 1 anymore. There's still quite a lot of people depending on it.
Yeah. I mean, we have already like kind of slowed down the update rate. We don't publish new packages on Composer 1 if they're not used. Like we kind of took a few steps to discourage it more and more. And I think at some point, maybe end of this year, I will just like kind of dump the files there one last time as a static kind of static repository, and just shut down the updates completely, and so you can still use it forever as long as you don't need new versions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which kind of just allows the commands to run, but it won't do much, I guess. But it at least won't break. I think that's our path forward there. But with PHP, it's like you don't even have a service running or anything, right? Like it's just you download the old software, and if you want to run PHP 4, you can. It's
yeah.
So I'm not sure how to incentivize people really, other than telling them it's a bad idea.
Yeah. Why did you actually decide to make a second version of Composer?
Mostly it was really just a bunch of things we had to break there was just many like initial issues that we couldn't fix, let's say, without breaking some core concepts, which mostly, like from a user's perspective, didn't change anything. It was like the let's say the versioning there, the hard jump from 1 to 2 is really mostly affecting plugins. which is good because for most people it's actually not affecting them much, but it's bad because it affects every single plugin in the sense that they need to be revalidated with the new code and updated to have the requirements updated, which means that I've been really super discouraged from going to V3 anytime soon, because it's like the pain there was quite a lot of so I'm not sure when the when a third one would happen, but on the other hand, we managed with 2.3 to drop like all the old PHP versions, and so that I think that happened pretty smoothly overall, like because it changed the internal dependencies quite a bit. And so I'm thinking that's probably a step we can do again, like just dropping older PHPs as they get more and more irrelevant, and having this kind of LTS. Like we have the 2.2 LTS, which still allows people on old PHP to get like critical fixes in, but without like all the new features, just so we have some sanity, because I was really sick of coding for PHP 5.3. Like after 10 years, I was like, okay, this was fun, but
that's of course the downside of like a package manager. It has to work for older versions.
Yeah, it's kind of the ultimate lowest common denominator there. Like, I mean, there are some solutions there with some, down compiling the code and stuff like that, like PHP 10 is doing. But I'd rather not go there if I can avoid it, just because it adds also some complexity in the whole build process and so on. But yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah. Okay. And what version is the minimum one for Composer right now?
7.2.
Okay.
So it's still fairly reasonable
compared to 5.3.
It's still, but it's still, I mean, it's still very generous in the sense that we support really, like, I think when we released it was like over 90% of usage already was covered by this, and by now it's probably 95% or something. I don't know. So not too many people left behind on the LTS.
Nice. A couple of questions, random questions about Composer that I still have, but I was curious. Sure. What's kind of the most tricky part of Composer's code base?
I would say network, like just anything to do with networking is always the worst.
Okay.
Just because it's tricky in which sense is maybe the question, right? But I would say in the like computer science sense, it's probably the solver and all the dependency resolution stuff. That's like the trickiest to grasp. But in terms of maintenance, networking is definitely the biggest pain, just because it's extremely hard to test. It's extremely hard to reproduce. Like even when someone has an issue, sometimes it's intermittent. And usually you cannot reproduce it remotely. So it's just like this kind of things are absolute hell to maintain. And to some extent to that, I would say like the whole Git downloading process and all the fallbacks we have there to handle, GitHub and Bitbucket and this and that, and all the authentication mechanism.
Right.
That's probably the biggest spaghetti there, like in the sense of really, messy code to low testing. The combination there is really, it's probably the worst point. But it's just, again, like it's really hard to test this stuff, to test all the possibilities. It's doable, but it's just such a huge effort. And it changes very seldomly, so it's kind of not really worth the investment of testing it, but it's
Well, that's great to hear, actually, that even like the one of the backbones of the PHP community is still has some parts spaghetti code and difficult to test
absolutely.
parts.
I mean,
that's nice. That's good. I hope that might encourage some people that they know they're not alone.
No, I'm really like, if anything, I'm not a good example when it comes to best practices and so on. Like, just because I work alone a lot, and when you work alone, there's just a lot of things you can get away with, which in teams you have to usually standardize a little bit more, or it helps, let's say.
Yeah.
So I don't think I'm a role model there by any means in terms of code quality.
Well, I think actually many people take the same approach and actually build things that work and impact the community and the ecosystem. So that's nice to hear, I would say. Don't feel ashamed about that.
No, I'm not, but I'm just like, I see that, if you want to learn about code quality, maybe go learn somewhere else.
Nice.
I think maybe I like, if I can take any credit, I would say it's more on the just overall project management and I don't know, like maintenance decisions, maybe UI, UX decisions, stuff like that, which I think are probably more important for the project success, actually, than having super clean code. And then, because if the product is not usable, then nobody uses it, and if the code is wonderful, well, only you care. Like, so.
I think that's a great thought to end our conversation with. Maybe I still had one more question. Maybe you can. I wanted to know if you had like these lesser known composer tricks that you wanted to share before we end.
Right. So I have a couple that I thought of. It's always difficult to really know what's known or not known, obviously, because like what I'm aware of is a bit different than what most people are. But two things maybe. One is like the check platform recs. So it's short for check platform requirements. That's the command name. So this allows you kind of at build time, or not even build time, but let's say like if you're deploying, you could kind of build this into your deployment process, where you have like, okay, you just put down the files, however you do that. You have your project files there now. You have your dependencies. If you have a build step and then a deploy step separately, then probably you kind of just unzip something, and you don't necessarily do the composer install on the server. And then this command allows you to still check that all the platform requirements are valid. And platform requirements are like the PHP version, and all the extensions are there. All these things which you might miss otherwise, and if you miss it, then you get some problems at runtime. So I would say that's a good idea to kind of build this in before you put the new deployment live. You kind of check, okay, is it really still valid? I'm not sure if everyone's doing it already, but hopefully
I wasn't aware of it, so it's
okay.
a good one.
Well, then at least someone learned something. And the other one I would say is more like a debugging thing. If you're curious, like why is something not installing in that version, or the opposite, like why is this dependency there? This composer why, or why not command. are really nice. You just give them, like you say, Composer, why not this package in this version, and it will try to figure out like what's actually preventing it from being installed.
I actually knew that one, but it's like it's a lifesaver actually. So
I think
great.
a lot of people don't know about it and just tend to waste a lot of time trying to figure things out by themselves, and that usually gives you a pointer of some sort and probably can save you time.
Cool. Okay. Well, that's about everything I wanted to talk about. Thanks so much for being here and making the time. And I wish you all the best with Packagist and Composer. And thank you for all the work you've been doing, and Niels as well. It's the backbone of PHP. So we're very, very thankful that it's available. So
thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Jordi, and see you next time.
Well, thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.